Let's go. Texas going to Ann Arbor. We've talked about this game for what feels like months now because we talked about the trench warfare that is going to be happening between the tackles, between these two teams. Look, Texas has a great offensive line. Michigan has a fantastic defensive line.
Yeah.
Texas has some potentially really good weapons on offense. I'd still have some question marks about it. Michigan has a really good secondary. Texas maybe has some questions in the front seven. I think less so than maybe some people are concerned about. I do think that the loss to Byron Murphy was gigantic,
Yeah.
but Michigan hasn't shown that they have the weapons on offense that they maybe did last year.
Nor the offensive line play. I mean, they struggled with Fresno State. I know there's a little bit more talent there than you're used to seeing in group of five play, but to me, I was disappointed. You're talking about a ton of fourth and fifth year guys with not a ton of experience, but veteran age time in a weight room, in a film room, in that culture with Michigan football. And we were expecting that they were going to come out there with Alex Orji and those running backs and pound the football with a dominant offensive line, and they didn't. And that does not bode well playing against a really, really good football team they got coming into them, especially if they are clicking offensively, right? Sometimes the best ways to beat a really good offense, an offense that is humming, is to control the clock, control the football, keep them off the field, keep your defense fresh, force Quinn Ewers and Texas to score every time they have the football. Put that pressure on them because that leads to mistakes, that leads to turnovers, especially if you have the talent you have on that defense. I want to talk about Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, who had fantastic games. Obviously, everyone knows Mason Graham and Kenny Grant there, plus those linebacking cores, playmakers all over there with Ernest Hausman and Jashawn Barham. But I look at that secondary. This is where I want to see them be able to make some. I know Will Johnson. I know he kind of got picked on a little bit. I was surprised. I was impressed. Jalen Moss is a dog, but they kind of
Yeah.
went after him with Fresno State. There's some talent there on Texas's skill positions. You talked about them, but I want to see Hill. Is Hall healthy? I think he went down a little bit. Hopefully he's back. But how about those safeties, the new safeties, right? Because you got obviously Rod Moore isn't there no more. It's going to be interesting. And to me, that's the matchup because yes, you can get obviously the pass rush to be nice, but it doesn't matter if you're 7 yards here, 12 yards here, boom, 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 and you're nickel and dime your way down the field, which I think Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers would be very happy to do. Plus, also that offensive line for Texas, we believe, is really, really, really good. First big test, but really good.
It probably their biggest test of the season if I have to look in previous. Now Georgia's defensive line obviously has its own monsters and beasts on it, but I think interior wise, I think this Michigan interior defensive line is the best that Texas is going to face.
Plus, you're on the road too, and I believe now don't have any sources yet, but I believe the big house will be humming. Even those big new kickoff, I think there's a lot of excitement right there. A
They're
lot of
used to it.
Michigan against the worlds, like there always is, right? Michigan always thinks everyone's out to get them, whatever it may be. They got a lot of stuff going on off the field. The rallies too, like that matters too with the helmet communications. You're gonna see Quinn Ewers doing a lot of this. And if you're listening to a podcast, I'm covering my ears. I'm trying to listen to my offense coordinator or Steve Sarkisian put into plays, and also like snap counts. Like it's gonna let Michigan be able to get a jump or the same jump that the offensive linemen get for Texas. That's something to watch too on third downs, especially early in this football game if it's a close football game.
Yeah, so look, we're picking this at 7.5, and right for every game we pick the spread and who we think's going to win, right? Because those two can be different. I think for this game, and what's crazy to me is that at a neutral site, Texas would be favored by double digits. Isn't that wild?
Well, so it opened at 3.5, right? And so, but then all of a sudden, Michigan trots out Davis Warren and struggles, right? He struggled a little bit. They struggled
Yeah,
drops,
what do you
right?
mean opened? Like
Uncharacteristic
opened before week 1, right?
before week 1. Correct. Thank you. And so then that live obviously dramatically moved, and so now it's over a touchdown at 7.5. And like you said, neutral site, that means you're probably looking at 10 points right there. Kind of crazy for a team that Michigan that obviously was really, really good last year. A lot of expectation in the offseason, a lot of turmoil too. And maybe change is the right word, not turmoil. But yeah, like you said, it's pretty interesting to see. It's hard to fade Michigan though at home. But listen, I think I'm gonna do it, man. I think I am. I don't think they have the weapons to keep up with Texas if it does get into a high scoring game.
which it
And
won't.
you think it will?
I don't think it'll get it to a high scoring game at all. And that's kind of a preview to something later.
Is that so? Do you think that'll be by design? So if it's a low scoring football game, that obviously favors Michigan, right? Is that going
Correct.
to be their plan to just muddy up the game, muddy up
Oh
the
yeah.
clock and not penalties, but just long sustaining drives?
It's Kalel Mullings, right?
I love
He's
Mullings.
he's better than Donovan Edwards. Okay.
Can
Not
we can we like
can
can
we
we say that?
agree? Are we allowed to say that? Because like I haven't
Listen,
been on like I'm not a Donovan Edwards hater. This is more of a Kalel Mullings like appreciation.
truther.
Like
What?
he is so good, man. He's so good.
Dude, Edwards was 2.5 yards per, and I know it's a small sample size. It's week one,
Last year
yada
it was
yada yada.
4. It was only 4.2 with a
Yeah,
really
dude,
good offensive
he
line.
hasn't been good in multiple years. I know he's on the cover of EA Sports. You can see that in the background there. But listen, Mullings is that dude, and I think if you're on the Michigan program, I think you understand that. And obviously him and Colston Loveland, I'm sorry, are two of their playmakers. They need to get going. On the outside, Matthew from Michigan. Who are you gonna see? Who's wide receiver one there? Is it Tyler
I,
Morris? Are we going to see
I
Samaj
guess
Moore?
I
Who
guess
leads
it's
them in
Tyler Morris.
receiving? I guess who's the leading
Samaj
reception?
Morgan. He needs to do something and he needs to
You
be good.
run after catch type thing?
Yeah, you need to have explosive. Like you're gonna need to run
Yeah.
the ball effectively, and then in order to put the ball in the end zone, sometimes it's tough. Now, if you have a good run game, it is easier to put the ball in the end zone when you get to the red zone, but things get tighter in there. And when you have a quarterback like Davis Warren, where we're not sure what he's going to be able to do in the red zone to elevate your team's capability to scoring outside of the 20s, I mean, I think it's Samaj Morgan, dude. He's got to do something. I'm with you. I'll take Texas and I'll lay the 7.5. Even though I think that this can be a low scoring game, I still think that Texas can cover that 7.5. I don't see this being a blowout. I don't see either offenses necessarily because we still have question marks about Texas's receivers. Now, do I think this is a very talented group? Yes. Okay. But I don't know if they're that much like Michigan secondary is really good, and I know we have some questions about it, but I'm very confident the Michigan secondary is going to be able to handle themselves, and that linebacking core is just so good, dude. So like I have a feeling that if Texas is not able to run the ball with Jaden Blue, maybe the same way that they'd be able to run with Cedric Baxter, CJ Baxter,
Yeah.
you're going to be forced to throw the ball. And look, Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback, and he's been able to elevate his game in certain moments, right? But on the road, I know he did it against Bama those years ago, but that required an elite performance from Quinn Ewers. And is that what we're going to get this weekend? I don't know. But I don't think he has to be elite for Texas to cover the 7.5. So I'll take Texas to cover 7.5.
No, I'm glad you brought up CJ Baxter. That's what I wanted to get to next because to me, if you're talking about edges in this game, for Texas to be able to create explosive plays, not relying on Quinn Ewers, not having to face that pass rush, it was going to be him. And obviously keeping him ahead of the chains. That's how you beat Michigan. Being able to do what they like to do to people, right? Out physical you, go body blow for body blow. And that's what I want to see here. This offensive line for Texas has a ton of mass. Same thing can be said for Michigan's defensive line, mass and experience and talent. It's going to be incredible. You want to talk about a high level college football? You want to talk about NFL scouts going crazy? That's where it's going to be. And then on the outside there too, with Isaiah Bond, guys like Matthew Bolden, Ryan Wingo looking good. Um, those guys going up against the talent that's in Michigan's secondary and the chess match that's going to be Wink Martindale and Steve Sarkisian. And it's awesome. It is awesome. Real quick, coaching edge. Is it Texas? I think we should. I
I think
think
so.
Texas
I
because
think
I
it
don't know
is.
enough about Sharon Moore. I don't know enough about Wink Martindale
As a
as a
head
college
coach.
defensive coordinator. Thank you. As a head coach, and I love Johnny Nansen. Right, we love him. Pete Kwiatkowski
Now, here's the
and
flip side
Sark,
of this.
obviously.
Under pressure, Quinn Ewers, look, people might come after me at this, but 30% of the time when Quinn Ewers gets pressured, he goes down. And Wink Martindale is very, very aggressive.
Yep.
And if he finds a way to get pressure on Quinn Ewers, it'll be interesting to see whether Quinn Ewers is going to be able to respond and throw in the face of pressure and get rid of the ball quickly so he's not setting his team behind the chains. Because if you're behind the chains against Wink Martindale, he is unleashing the dogs on third
Yeah,
down. So
you don't
you
want
have to
that.
get ahead of the chains. That's why you also have to be able to run the ball, which is why I don't know about either of these offenses really lighting it up this week.